Hey guys, it's Linux Next here. In today's video, we are going to be reviewing Nobara 41. It's been quite a while since the last time I reviewed Nobara. I think it was like 12 months ago I reviewed Nobara 41 or Nobara 41. And, I decided, let's try it. They've rebased to Fedora 41. And there is a bunch of new things included, and a decent amount of things have changed with Nobara. And I just wanted to see, is it still a good, introduction to the Linux desktop, Linux distro, Linux gaming kind of like ecosystem that we have going on over at Linux. And of course, we'll be looking at the issues that we've had with Nobara. What is Nobara if you haven't heard of it before, and the person who maintains Nobara. I thought I would bring up the most important part of Nobara, and that is the issues I've had with this distro within the past couple of weeks that I have been testing and using it. And one of the first issues that I have with Nobara is about installing newer kernels. For some reason, each time I've gotten a kernel update, it has failed to boot for some reason. I do not know why necessarily. I have looked at the logs, and I do have a picture here that I did take of it failing to boot on the latest kernel, which was 6.13.3. And this happened not on just that kernel, but it happened on any kernel before 6.12.8, which is the kernel that got installed when I installed Nobara. So basically, every kernel past that point that I've downloaded has failed to boot. Now, when you look at this picture, it says that it failed to mount boot.mount. And when we look at the size of the kernel, we search up Linux kernel, we want to download it, the size is 0. So it's quite odd that this is happening. I don't know why it's happening necessarily. If we do look at some of the other ones, like 6.12.8, it's around 75. This is kernel core. There is a difference. I don't know if like kernel, it being 0 in size, there's a kernel core here that's 94 in size. So I'm a bit unsure of what the issue is necessarily, if it's a problem with downloading the kernel, or if it's a different issue with it actually having a problem when it tries to boot. My conclusion, I think, is that it's having some issue maybe downloading the kernel, and so it's failing to boot because it gets past the loading screen on my BIOS. When I pick the kernel, it starts loading, and then it fails when I think it starts to load systemd. So it tries to load all the services, and it fails to mount boot.mount. So it's quite weird that it also says like dependency failed for boot EFI mount, local FS target, and some service it tried to load also did fail. So quite weird, this problem, I would say. I have just been using 6.12.8, and I've had no real major issues when it comes to like testing games or just using the desktop itself. So if anyone knows maybe what that issue is, please comment down below. I would really love to know. And the other issue has not really got to do with Nobara, but it's got to do with how Steam does not have H.264 enabled by default. This is actually an issue that's been happening on quite a wide range of Linux distros lately, and it's caused some people to think that disabling the shader cache on Steam also mucks up the video codecs in games under Proton, when the issue is actually H.264 is not enabled in the Steam application itself. If you do have this issue, like you've been having video codec issues, I would definitely give this command a try. It's a Steam command that unlocks the H.264 codec, so then when you try to play games like Marvel Rivals, for example, without this enabled, you get a black screen when you load up the menu, and it skips a bunch of the intro stuff, which could be a good thing for you, but you do get a black screen on the menu itself, like the video that is supposed to play. It's not there because, well, H.264 is disabled in Steam. So I'll leave this in the description, and you can use this command, which unlocks H.264, and then after, you can test some games, because it's going to launch Steam with it enabled. You can try some games, see if that has solved your problem, and if it has, then all good. So you can close Steam from this terminal, and then you can just continue launching Steam the normal way, because after that, Steam keeps that enabled all the time. So not really an issue with Nobara, I would say, because it has been happening on Arch, it's been happening on Bazite also. I don't know if Bazite's fixed it yet, but it's just a common problem that I'm seeing where H.264 is just not enabled in Steam by default. And I was told by a Steam developer when I had this issue in the finals where video codecs weren't being played on the displays on the maps, and a developer from Steam, one of the probably like Proton developers, was like, have you tried using this command to unlock H.264? And after I enabled it, it worked perfectly fine. So definitely give that command a try. Now, back to the actual main video of Nobara. What is Nobara? It says it right here. It says one, well, the site is still work in progress because, well, you can see it's looking pretty bare bones, and he has moved a lot of things to a wiki now, which I'll also show soon. But as I see it, the Nobara project, to put it simply, is a modified version of Fedora Linux with user-friendly fixes added to it. Fedora is a very good workstation OS, however, anything involving any kind of third-party or proprietary packages is usually absent from a fresh install. A typical point-and-click user can often struggle with how to get a lot of things working behind the basic browser and Office documents that come with the OS without having to take extra time to search documentation. Some of the important things that are missing from Fedora, especially in regards to gaming, include wine dependencies, OBS Studio, third-party codec packages such as those for GStreamer, third-party drivers such as NVIDIA drivers, and even small package fixes here and there. Now, I would say that this does need to be updated because a lot of this isn't the case anymore, like the NVIDIA drivers. When you first install Fedora, it actually comes up with a button that you can press now to enable a repo that allows you to install NVIDIA drivers on Fedora. So that comes up with the welcome screen on KDE Plasma, I'm pretty sure, and on GNOME, I'm pretty sure it's in the GNOME software package, so that issue doesn't really happen anymore. When it comes to OBS Studio, you can also use the FLATPAK OBS Studio, which is what I'm using currently because it just offers everything that I need. I don't need much plugins to get OBS Studio working. And then when it comes to wine dependencies, again, you can use FLATPAK for a lot of those packages, which does solve the problem, but I know some people want to use system packages, so that's where Nobara can solve that problem. And the biggest one I would say is the third-party codec packages. There is a couple of codec packages that are missing on a usual Fedora workstation OS. Again, this can be solved with FLATPAK, but if you want to use system packages, then this can work greatly. And he says here, this project aims to fix most of those issues and offer a better gaming, streaming, and content creation experience out of the box. More importantly, we want to be more point and click friendly and avoid the basic user from having to open the terminal. It's not that the terminal and / all terminal usage are a bad thing by any means. Power users are more than welcome to continue with using the terminal, but for new users, point and click ease of use is usually expected. And it says here, it should be clarified that this distribution is not to be considered a Fedora spin, which is true. It's not. It's definitely a third-party project run by basically a couple people, and there are no Fedora developers or parties directly involved. We use Fedora packages, code, and repositories. That is the extent of it. And then he says here, the modifications section of our wiki provides details of modifications Nobara has made on top of Fedora, as well as other additions, repository information, and where to find source code. So if you want to go look at that, you can look at the wiki Nobara project / modifications. Now, who created the Nobara project? Well, it is an engineer from Red Hat called GLORIOUSEGGROLL. You may know him from his other projects, which is like, let's say, GE Proton or WineGE. He used to maintain WineGE, but that's no longer a thing. That's been archived. He mostly maintains GE Proton now. And then, of course, he maintains Nobara. And then he also does help out a lot in the open wine components, or UMU as we like to call it, like the UMU launcher or UMU Proton. And this is a backend that applies Proton or like wine fixes to games outside of Steam. So basically it's kind of like Valve's pressure vessel, and basically the exact same of that, where it just applies fixes when you launch a game outside of Steam. And there is a nice video that I have found from Framework, which if you don't know, they are a laptop company and they do like Linux, and they decided to do a rather just like short introduction of why you should game on Linux, featuring GLORIOUSEGGROLL of Nobara.
I was playing a video game and I got a pop-up for a Windows update in the middle of the video game, and I was playing PvP and I was very mad. I said, okay, screw this, install Linux, and don't interrupt my games ever again.
We sat down with GLORIOUSEGGROLL, one of our Linux ambassadors, to learn more about gaming on Linux.
That was my handle that I played in Destiny 2. Originally, when I went to different conventions, everybody would call me GLORIOUSEGGROLL, and then it got a little bit long in the tongue, and then they started just calling me Eggy, so kind of stuck since then.
That's
so
another way of calling him. You can call him Eggy if you want to.
Nobara is my take on Fedora. We want to make things easier without spending so much time. A lot of people, they see Linux and they're like, oh yeah, sure, you can game on Linux, but it takes a lot of time and tinkering. It's like, these days, no, it really doesn't.
That is true. Most of the time it doesn't.
Originally started
only sometimes
because I wanted a way for my dad to run games. My dad...
And here was the next part, is why Nobara was created. And well, it was created because of his father. They basically had a lot of Windows updates and it corrupted the Windows install. And so he created Nobara, which we'll play this video here so he can explain it as well.
He's an old gamer. And all he does is he works, he comes home, he plays PC games. One day, what happened is he had a Windows update. It borked his USB drivers to the point where they wouldn't work at all. And he called me over. I spent a weekend trying to fix it, and then at that point I said, okay, screw this. I got a list of his games and checked which ones were compatible with Linux, and then I converted him. And he's been on Linux ever since.
What are the benefits of gaming on Linux?
You don't have Windows tracking everything. You don't have pop-ups all the time for certain things. You don't have blue screens and stuff like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, Windows and Linux and any other operating system that you run, you're probably going to have some kind of driver errors at some point or another.
And that's true. Linux is not perfect.
Agnostic. Try to use Arch and try to stick with it at least for a little bit. That will.
Now this statement here is very interesting. That you should use Arch as a beginner. I think that statement right there, I would say no, don't use Arch. If you want to go in the deep end and you really want to get mad at like learning how to use Linux and understanding it, then yeah, sure, use Arch Linux, go for it. But don't be surprised if you do experience actual issues. But that's a good video that I decided to show off with GLORIOUSEGGROLL, and the history, kind of like a little small history about Nobara and why it was created, was because of his father. And it also turned into an actual project where it was like to try and help beginners coming over from Windows to try and get into, using Linux as your main desktop, either it be for gaming purposes or to install Nobara on something like a handheld machine also, as they do provide that. Now, when it comes to installing and downloading Nobara, I would say it's pretty damn simple. They offer 5 versions of Nobara. The official one, which is a custom themed version of KDE Plasma. Then there's a GNOME version. So if you want to use GNOME, there is an ISO for that. If you want to use a clean version of KDE, so basically the stock Breeze version of KDE Plasma, you can also download that ISO if you don't like Nobara's theme. There is also a Steam Home Theater PC version, which is kind of like to make it look and feel like a Steam Deck in a sense, and it allows you probably to go into like SteamOS mode and all that. And then there is a Steam handheld mode, so that's specifically made for to run on a Steam Deck. And then it says here 1, 2, 3, and 4 have NVIDIA alternative ISOs, which include NVIDIA drivers pre-installed. So if you are someone that is new to the Linux world and you want to move over and you have an NVIDIA card and maybe you're a bit scared of installing NVIDIA drivers on Linux for the first time, there is NVIDIA drivers provided for you so that, you know, when you boot into it, the NVIDIA drivers are already pre-installed and you can just go off and start installing applications and configuring things to your liking. And it shows off some previews of what Nobara looks like on the official one, which is like the KDE with the theme they have, a GNOME one, the stock KDE, the HTPC one, and then the Steam Deck one, which has that SteamOS interface. And maybe in the future, Nobara will include maybe some other desktops, maybe like the Cosmic desktop environment, maybe possibly. That would be really cool to see if it was provided as a separate ISO. Now, when it comes to what is new in Nobara 41, this is the newest rebase of the Fedora 41, and what have they included or changed that has either improved it or maybe made it a little bit worse? Well, the first one is a new updated system. Nobara has gone through a lot of updaters like GUIs, and like terminal options that used to appear when you installed an update, and now it's a nice updater, I would say. If we do open it here, it shows 3 different windows here: a system update, a FLATPAK user update, and a FLATPAK system update. So if you're using FLATPAK either in the user mode version or the system version, it will show different packages showing up for each update. Now, I've already updated my system to the newest before, so it should show nothing, but it does go through a lot of steps here where it checks the repos, it checks for any fixes that it wants to apply, and then it checks for actual updates. And then if it does have updates, there's like a button that will appear here that allows you to, well, update the system. So I would say this is really good from like the previous ones that used to be there that were kind of just like you clicked it and then you click the shortcut and then it would just instantly start updating in a terminal screen. I would say this is way better now that it's all kind of like GUI based. It just looks very nice. It's kind of understanding. You can kind of read through here and kind of figure out like what it's doing. So really good that's available now. And then one other one was they decided to change from the Discover and GNOME software store to this installer, which is called the Yum Extender GUI package manager, basically, or package GUI to install any type of packages. It would be system packages or FLATPAK packages. And the reason for this was because of the backend that was used on Discover and GNOME software called Package Kit, I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. That was causing issues with Nobara updates. Some people were like updating through that and that was causing problems. So that's why they decided to go down this route of having a separate GUI application that they could handle with the updates or installing system packages or FLATPAK packages. And with this new package GUI manager, it also does support snaps better. So that's good. If you want to use Snap, you can use it on Fedora, supposedly. Pretty cool if you're into the whole Snap package stuff. And with this new Yum extender, it now does support the Snap package support. So if you do want snaps on Nobara, you can do that now, and it is supported rather better, I would say, on this distro. And one of the other nice features that I did see is a driver manager. So last time there was like the Nobara welcome screen, which I'm pretty sure is still a thing. It is, but that used to be where you would install things, but when it comes to like drivers. But now there is a Nobara driver manager. So for me, I have a RX 6700 and it shows up 2 options. One is to install the ROCm package. So if I want to do any type of enterprise software, like compute type stuff, I can install that, and then I can like run, I don't know, any type of like enterprise software you could think of, ROCm would be used, or OpenCL. And Nobara did decide to switch to the regular Mesa packages. So they don't run off the master/git version of Mesa anymore, which did cause probably some issues down the line, and that's why they made the change. But if you want to install it, you can now easily in this driver manager. If like you want to test out some newer patches that are available that may improve like your AMD card, or if you're testing out maybe like the NVK drivers, which is the NVIDIA Vulkan driver in Mesa that's being worked on, and it's gotten a lot better, but it's in newer Git versions of Mesa, so that's why this is a really good option. So you can easily test that out, and it easily installs it for you, and of course uninstalls it for you. And of course, if you have an NVIDIA card plugged in, or an Intel card also, this would be switched over to like NVIDIA logos, and it would show you NVIDIA drivers for you to install easily. And one other tool that is included with Nobara 41 is this Nobara tweak tool. It allows you to, well, tweak little things like some Steam Deck things. So to enable the game scope session automatic updates, recommended. So this is already enabled. There's also the enable auto configuring of controller input packages, recommended. So it's already enabled. And the Decky loader in game scope session, which is already enabled. And then there was another option that was enabled in here that was in between the auto mounting, and it was about enabling the AMD power, what's it called, overclocking thing that you enable at AMD GPUs, and then after you enable it, you can do things like overclocking, for example. And of course, the other one is enable auto mounting on available disk partitions. So it says partitions with auto mount enabled will be mounted at user login. Nobara's auto mount does not dynamically mount USB storage and SD cards when they are plugged in. Checking the box enables auto mounting on login for the partition and will also mount it. Only devices paths starting with /dev disk UUID are supported for stability across reboots. So for me, I'm not going to do that because I've already got some auto mounts enabled, which as you can see here, my extra games and games do get automated because I configured them in the KDE partition manager, which is a tool for configuring and like doing partition managing with different disks or SSDs that you have plugged in. And there is the Nobara welcome app. It says, welcome to Nobara Linux. Thank you for choosing Nobara. This welcome screen will help you guide you through the available resources for Nobara, as well as help you set up your computer to your liking. Enjoy the Nobara team. And it says here the first steps: update your system, open the driver manager, open the Nobara tweak tool, install more apps from the software manager, which is Yum Extender, and then you can install web applications. Then it's got some recommended additions like installing the Blender app for you, Kdenlive, OBS Studio, or Discord. Now, of course, you don't need to select these ones, but they are nice additions if you're a new user. You can install those applications through FLATPAK, which you can just grab through Yum Extender itself. But if you want the system package versions, you can pick these ones, which like OBS Studio, it does come with some things enabled that do fix some problems, and it does include some plugins, I'm pretty sure, also. And then there's some optional steps like if you want to install or update DaVinci Resolve. That is an application that has many troubles on Linux on many different distros, because really DaVinci Resolve is only meant to be installed on Rocky Linux. That's from the documentation from DaVinci Resolve, or who the Blackmagic, I think they called the company. That's their documentation for it, is to install it on Rocky Linux, which no one on the desktop space uses Rocky Linux. So Nobara makes it really easy to install and update DaVinci Resolve. And if you want to install GE Proton or any type of really runner, I would say this application you can, which is pre-installed by the way, is called Proton Plus. This is an awesome application if you want to install all types of different runners for running different wine applications, or if you want to install GE Proton on something like Lutris or Steam. I would say it's really freaking good. And one last addition is called the RPM installer. So usually when you install an RPM package manually, you have to do it through the terminal. And if you're on something like the Fedora KDE Plasma Spin, you would just do it in Discover, or if you're on GNOME Software, you would install it through GNOME Software. So since they've removed GNOME Software and Discover, and they use the Yum extender, they need a way to install the RPM packages, but not in the terminal. So it's like easier for other people who don't really want to muck around with the terminal. So there is a nice application here that you can use for installing RPMs. You cannot launch it. You would have to launch it when you download a .rpm, and it will install the RPM package for you easily. And when it comes to Nobara's theme, they have improved it. They made some like round corners better when it comes to like windows. And then when it comes to the icon pack, which is paperless, by the way, that has been improved a little bit. When it comes to like broken icons, that has been improved. And then when it comes to the wallpapers, this is where I would say the wallpapers are a bit interesting. They're a bit AI, and that's because they are. Would I use these? No. Some of these are funny. Like, what the hell is happening here? The Tux is just going to town right now, destroying this city. Another one's like it's out in this like ocean in like Antarctica or somewhere, and it's like a cyborg Tux. Very interesting wallpapers, I would say, and they 100% are AI. You can notice the buildings here of how bad they look, but when it comes to, you know, like it's just wallpapers, so you can always just apply your own wallpaper, and some of these do look good. Like these ones in particular do look nice. You know, AI sometimes does a relatively good job with wallpapers, and there's like these ones, for example, which do an alright job when it comes to like abstract type art. So overall, I would say the wallpapers are mediocre. Some of them are good, some of them are like, I just know that these are kind of like just like funny wallpapers, and there is some anime wallpapers which are also AI generated. It seems they may be some type of like anime girl that Nobara is being used as like kind of like a mascot type thing. I don't really know, but if you like these wallpapers, you can use them in Nobara rather easily. And I would say, you know, like I said, these wallpapers are mediocre overall. And when it comes to what is pre-installed on Nobara, well, there is a lot pre-installed. Enough, I would say, that any user that, you know, installs Nobara could start doing either like Officeworks, they could do, you know, open their browser. Obviously there'll be a browser pre-installed. They used to use Chromium because there was some Firefox issue, but now you can use Firefox. But when it comes to what's pre-installed, you do have the Libre or Libra Office applications. Of course, you get like a text editor out of the box. You get basically all of the desktop applications that come with the desktop environment. So when it comes to KDE Plasma, you get like Komosa, which is a webcam utility from KDE. You get the KDE Connect app. You get the NeoChat if you want to talk on Matrix. You get like a web app application. So if you're into like web applications, you can easily create them in your browser. When it comes to other apps, I know Inkscape is available in here also. A wide range of applications, I would say, to get you started when it comes to using Nobara. And there is a utility called Open Gamepad UI, which is a game launcher and overlay. And I have tested this out, but it's a bit... makes that sound. It is a bit weird with how things launch, and it's a bit glitchy with launching the whole like SteamOS mode that gets launched after you launch a game. So I would definitely give this a try because it looks really good, I would say, when it comes to the UI, when it comes to how it grabs images. Really good application, I would say, that's pre-installed. Now, what about, is Nobara better than something like CashesOS, for example? That is a Arch-based distro that provides a lot of things out of the box for you also, and it's supposed to be a gaming distro. It's supposed to perform better than other distros like Nobara, for example, and I did decide to benchmark it. And when we do look at the games that I did decide to benchmark, which was a wide range of games, I would say, one I was not able to do was Black Myth Wukong, and that is because for some reason under Nobara it crashes when I try to launch it into the benchmark mode. It launches into the main menu, but doesn't actually launch into benchmark mode. While on CashesOS, it launches perfectly fine. So I don't know what was happening there when it comes to that, but that's one game I was not able to test. So the first game is Dirt Rally 2. It is a game that I like to play a lot, and it is when it comes to like graphic settings, it's basically on the max when it comes to Dirt Rally 2 because, well, it's a pretty optimized game, I would say. And when we run it, especially under DXVK, it runs extremely extremely well. But when we look at Cashews OS, we can see 236, while Nobara only got 219. And when we look at the average, it's 183 versus 173. And the 1% means pretty close margin of error. But when it comes to the averages and the 97 percentile, you know, Cashews OS is doing a better job overall. And that might be because it's running a newer kernel as well, because I'm not able to use the newer kernel. So I can't really tell if Nobara is better than Cashews OS because it's running a newer kernel. But when we look at these ratings so far, we see that Cashews OS is performing better. Same goes when we look at Cyberpunk 2077. It's 122 versus 117. So this one, not much of a difference, probably just margin of error. If we go on to something like Batman Arkham Knight, we can see where, again, margin of error, they're pretty neck and neck. The Finals, that is a game that I've liked to play a lot, and it's a really fun FPS game. I would definitely give it a try. We can see 217 on Cashews, while on Nobara, it's 197. If we look at the average, it's 177. Nobara is 161. So again, Cashews OS in the lead when it comes to the Finals. When it comes to Marvel Rivals, 164 versus 157. Maybe margin of error, but when we look at the averages, 133 versus 128. So we can see again, Cashews OS is performing pretty well. And the last one is Red Dead Redemption 2. And as you can see here, it's pretty neck and neck, I would say, pretty margin of error. So overall, I would say that it doesn't really matter which one you choose, either it be Cashews OS or Nobara. Both do a really good job of playing games on Linux nowadays. You could really just pick which one you prefer when it comes to if you like Arch or if you like Fedora. And the last thing I would like to see with Yum Extender is about the error that can sometimes show up when you're installing a package, either it be through FLATPAK or through the system packages. Usually, sometimes the error is small enough, but sometimes it's too long and there's nowhere to look at logs. For some reason on Yum Extender. So if you want to try and like easily look at logs, like a button that comes up and you can see the logs of, you know, your FLATPAK package that's failing to install or a system package that's failing to install, you can't really seem to see that anywhere. There's no button to see that. So that is my conclusion with Nobara 41 after using it for a couple of weeks. The issues that I've had, now you know who GLORIOUSEGGROLL is and what he does. And I would like to know your thoughts about Nobara. Have you had that kernel issue? I would really like to know, and just your experience when using Nobara over like the past couple of years of Nobara being alive. And of course, definitely give a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to. Thank you to my supporters. Also, I'll show a screenshot of you now, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.